In the 1710s, a recently ordained nun began a love affair with King John V of Portugal. Though this sounds strange on the surface, the convent she lived in was hiding many dark secrets, and in time, Paula of Odivelas became a very important figure in the country. Join me as we explore her story. The woman known today as Mother Paula de Odivelas, or Madre Paula de Odivelas, was born as Paula Teresa da Silva e Almeida on the 17th of June 1701 in the parish of Santa Justa, on the outskirts of the city of Lisbon, the Portuguese capital. She hailed from a relatively well-to-do middle-class family. Her ancestor was Johannes Paul de Brute, a German man who had served in the guard of Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor and King of Spain in the first half of the 16th century. De Brute had subsequently settled in Portugal, a kingdom which briefly came under Spanish rule between the late 1570s and the 1640s. His trade as a goldsmith and imperial service ensured the family some wealth, and so a century and a half later, the family Paula Teresa was born into was a relatively affluent one. Paula's parents, Adrião de Almeida and Josefa da Silva, had 3 daughters, Paula having one older sister named Maria Micaela and a younger sister called Leocadia Felicia. In the autumn of 1704, when Paula was just 3 years old, her older sister Maria was admitted as a novice at the monastery of Saint Denis of Odivelas, a prominent religious house near Lisbon. What was remarkable was that in due course, both Paula and Leocadia joined her at Odivelas. At the time, the girl's father was in financial difficulties and didn't have the means to provide a good education for his daughters or the money for a dowry. Paula was also a rebellious girl, and so she entered as a novice there in January 1717 when she was 16 years of age, and professed a month later. At the convent, Paula would have woken up early in the morning to pray, and then spent the rest of the day in a variety of activities, including reading, writing, and caring for the poor and sick. As a nun, she would dedicate her life to God, and live by 3 solemn vows: a life of chastity, poverty, and obedience. On top of her religious duties, Paula had to help with the running of the convent, which included tasks such as cooking, cleaning, sewing, and even gardening. However, as we will see, her life would most certainly not follow the traditional arc of a nun or a member of a religious order. Paula's life would doubtlessly be little remembered today had it not been for her entanglement with the King of Portugal, John or João V. John had become king in late 1706 when he was just 17 years of age. A competent ruler, John's reign was marked by immense prosperity, as Portugal benefited enormously from the discovery of gold mines in its colony of Brazil and the development of the sugar and Brazil wood industries there. In time, Paula would be a major beneficiary herself of the great wealth the crown acquired as a result, with 20% of all profits from activities in Brazil being delivered directly into the hands of the royal family. It was not long after Paula entered the monastery of Saint Denis that she first met with King John. You may wonder what the king was doing at a convent. Well, he was a major patron of the religious house and a frequent visitor there. For instance, in the early summer of 1719, he is recorded as arriving to Odivelas for the celebration of the festival for the relief of the Blessed Sacrament, while a few months later, John was also present at a wedding ceremony for the Count of Santiago's relatives at the monastery. Yet, this was no ordinary convent, especially by the standards of modern times. Various nobles and even the king had another reason for visiting the establishment. Well, these men sought out forbidden relations with the young nuns, and they were willing to go to considerable lengths to do so. The monastery of Saint Denis was home to around 300 nuns, many of whom were young and beautiful. Some rich and powerful men took a special liking to these women, and used their influence to fulfill their carnal desires. The nobles would read poetry, sing, and engage them in flirtatious conversations to try and seduce them. Once this was accomplished, the men would bribe keyholders, corrupt or threaten superior mothers, and use the aid of priests to open the necessary doors. Some would even climb the walls or disguise themselves as nuns to sneak into the convent. Even the king partook, and he was known as a great nun lover. He often stayed at the monastery, and it's said he even had a secret passage from his residence to the convent. And this promiscuity wasn't solely limited to Saint Denis, while throughout the 18th century, a similar thing was happening at countless monasteries across the country. In 1777, one man wrote the following regarding this: "The clergy, which is very numerous and powerful, is absolutely ignorant and debauched. Even the monks and nuns live in the most scandalous libertinism. The Portuguese love the statues of their saints and violate the holy laws of morality. They wander ceaselessly from crime to penance, and from penance to crime. They tremble at the mere name of the devil and hell, and indulge in all the excesses of the most base depravity." Exactly when the king first began his relationship with Paula during these sojourns at Saint-Denis is unclear, but we know that he had done so by the end of the 1710s. Initially, Paula had a brief affair with Francisco de Portugal, the Count of Vimiosa, but the king was blown away by the young woman's beauty, and he made a deal with the count so he would stay away from her. By that time, the king had taken on various lovers from the convent, but Paula quickly became his favourite. Then, on the 8th of September 1720, she gave birth to a son who was named Jose of Braganza, and became one of several illegitimate children which the king would sire in his life. In tandem, the king decided to acknowledge the child and bestowed the title of Abbess of Saint-Denis on Paula. Consequently, as she entered her 20s, Paula became known as Mother Paula de Odivelas, abbess of one of Portugal's most prominent nunneries and monasteries. Paula quickly became known for her enjoyment of her newfound position of power and wealth, though it said she became extremely arrogant and was known to utter improper words, incompatible with her religious status. In any case, John not only made her Abbess of Saint-Denis de Odivelas, but also gave her a large financial annuity and lavished her with gifts. This was a period of immense prosperity for the Portuguese crown and state, owing to the development of Brazil, and Mother Paula was a major beneficiary. Thus, she received 210,000 race coins in gold form every year from the Crown Exchequer. Gold and silver were a common motif of her residence at Odivelas, and we hear of solid gold statues found there, and even a solid bathtub allegedly made from over 3,500 ounces of silver and coated on the outside with gold. The piece had been commissioned by King John from a British goldsmith in 1724 and brought to Lisbon. A description of the contents of Paula's residence at Odivelas, written by an anonymous observer, sheds further light on the decadence in which Mother Paula lived in the 1720s and 1730s. This described a lavish set of apartments where everything seemed to be draped in expensive velvet curtains tinged with gold thread. Beds were dressed with the finest of fabrics from the Dutch Republic and Italy, while walls, tapestries, mirrors and other bits of furniture were all inlaid with silver and gold. The abbess did have an eye towards her responsibilities as a religious leader, and statues of the saints were located in various locations around the residence. Unsurprisingly though, these were also made of gold. And it was not just Mother Paula who benefited from her relationship with the king. Other members of her family were appointed to positions where they were paid extensive amounts of money. Paula's father, Adriel, for instance, was made a member of the Order of Christ in 1722, the successor organisation to the Knights Templar in Portugal, and was also knighted and given a sizable pension from the crown. Paula's son Jose also benefited from the arrangement between the king and his mother. Jose was one of several illegitimate children fathered by King John V. The monarch had 6 legitimate children with his wife Maria Anna of Austria, but of these 2 died in infancy and another at 19 years of age. In any event, John was unwilling to renounce responsibility for his illegitimate children. Thus, Paula's son Jose, along with another son of John's called Antonio, born in 1714, and Gaspar, born in 1716, were raised collectively in a palace of the Marquis of Lorical, in the Palhava area of what was then a suburb of Lisbon. The trio became known as the Children of Palhava as a result. John saw to it that they were well educated here along strict Roman Catholic lines by Friar Gaspar d'Encarnação. As a consequence, all 3 became prominent figures within the Portuguese Roman Catholic Church, with Paula's child Jose eventually being appointed as the General Inquisitor of the Portuguese Inquisition, making him a very powerful figure in his own right within Portuguese religious and political life. Although Paula's position as a former mistress of King John and her role as a mother of one of his illegitimate children ensured her wealth and position in Portuguese life. This was briefly destabilised in the late 1740s as his health deteriorated. This was caused by dropsy or edema, a serious form of fluid retention often caused by kidney or liver problems. It eventually killed John in the summer of 1750 at 60 years of age. His eldest son with Queen Maria Anna, Joseph, succeeded as King Joseph I. Yet, he was initially uninclined to demote or persecute his father's former mistresses and illegitimate children, and so Mother Paula remained a powerful figure at the monastery of Saint Denis as she entered her 50s. Paula continued as Abbess of Saint Denis and to live a life of considerable wealth and esteem after the death of King John. She was in charge there in 1755 when the enormous Lisbon earthquake struck the Portuguese capital, a quake which measured 7.7 magnitude or greater and which, as one of the deadliest earthquakes in history, destroyed much of the city and killed upwards of 12,000 people. The religious house at Odivelas was badly damaged in the course of it, and much of Paula's activities in the second half of the 1750s would have involved overseeing repairs and renovations. Her son Jose continued to act as head of the Portuguese Inquisition throughout the 1750s, notably overseeing the abolishing of the Jesuit order in Portugal and its colonies from the late 1750s, and reducing the use of torture methods employed by the Inquisition. However, he and another of King John's illegitimate sons were exiled to the mountainous Busaco region of Portugal in 1760, due to a conflict with Sebastião José de Carvalho e Melo, first Marquis of Pombal, and the most powerful minister within the government of King Joseph I. José would not be allowed to return to Lisbon until 1777, and consequently, Paula saw little of her son for the remainder of her life. Eventually, Paula died at 67 years of age on the 4th of July 1768. She was buried within the chapter house of the monastery at Saint Denis. Madre Paula is widely remembered in Portuguese society today, and her story has become more known in recent years owing to a 2017 series based on her life. Thank you so much everyone for watching this video on Mother Paula de Odivelas. I hope you found it interesting. Let me know what you thought of her life down below in the comments. And if you're wondering, the clips used throughout the video are from her series from 2017 based on her life. I have plenty of other royal content and Portuguese content on the channel, so make sure to check that out. And I hope you guys are subscribed and have notifications turned on to get all my videos as soon as I upload them. If you have any suggestions, also leave them in the comments below. And anyway, that's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next Forgotten Life. Thanks.